We are the Scheels Beacon Management System capstone project, and our sponsors are April. She is a project manager for the Information Services Department. Josh, he is the assistant store leader, and our mentor Eric is a full stack developer. Fun fact, it all started with potatoes. In 1902, German immigrant Frederick A. Scheel took his earnings from his first 3-acre potato harvest and placed a down payment on a small hardware and general merchandise store in Sabin, Minnesota. Once Frederick Scheel recognized his success with his hardware store, he began to expand Scheels into surrounding communities. Today, Scheels is one of the largest sporting goods stores in America, with over 115 years of retail experience. They are also employee stock owned, meaning that Scheels employees own shares within their company. Scheels is committed to uphold a high standard for customer service. They are passionate about their products and are dedicated to having the best retail experience in the eyes and minds of their customers. They carry world-class brands that are used by professionals. These brands include almost every sport you can imagine. And here, you can buy things like footwear, apparel, gear, and much more. They also create a unique customer experience only found at Scheels, such as the famous Ferris wheel. In order to make the customer experience better, Scheels has a team of software developers to create new and innovative systems that goes beyond the norm.
This brings us to our project. Scheels has a desire to track what products customers are interested in based on the products that they interact with. Where do we start? Scheels has a shoe section with multiple displays, much like the one you see in the picture. There are 4 shoes per pillar display with a monitor directly above them. Currently, the monitors only show ads of popular shoes. What if we could connect the shoes up with the monitor? When a customer picks up a shoe, can we make the monitor display that shoe's information? This would provide a unique customer experience that will show customers extra information about products, and Scheels can track what is being looked at. In order to connect the shoes to the monitors, Scheels found 2 gadgets that will help: beacons and mirrors. A beacon can be put into a shoe on display. A mirror is plugged into the monitor and holds the display information of the products. When the customer picks up the shoe, the beacon can send a signal to the mirror that then displays the shoe's information. Last year's project dealt with the connection between the beacon and the mirror. They created the functionality of picking up the shoe and displaying information on the monitor. Sort of. This year, we are tasked to create a mobile app that manages the entire system. This involves building an API to house the database, an Android application of version 22.5.1, which is Lollipop, that allows the user to edit beacon information and beacon to mirror relationships. Connecting both projects would be the next step to complete the project as a whole. And as you will find out, we did do so towards the end.
Our schedule for the project consists of 4 sprints. The first sprint was mainly documentation and planning. This was the first 3 weeks between January 27th to April 14th. This was our time to talk to Scheels, get what they wanted, and make a game plan. During this time, we made diagrams, mock-ups, and requirements for the project. We were given proximity beacons, a video beacon called a mirror, and an MC40 to use. We had a bit of a rocky start at the beginning as we thought we would have to build upon the previous year's project, the Lift and Learn project. However, we were unable to run their files. Luckily, we found out this wasn't the case and we would be able to continue without a problem. The second sprint was the start of our development. During this time between February 17th and March 11th, we built a base Android application, also a .NET Core API that our app can connect with. This API connects our database that stores SKU information or product information necessary for the project. The biggest issue in this sprint was the beacons. At this time, we didn't know much about how they worked or how they connected to an app. We were at risk of not having beacons working in our project at this point. However, this problem was solved in Sprint 3 as we figured out how the beacons could connect to the app, along with how to store information in the beacons. This sprint was from March 12th to April 8th. During this time, we finished all of our API work, were able to implement the bulk majority of the beacon functionality. The biggest issue was the UI, which was messy and clunky at the time. In Sprint 4, we reworked the UI to be cleaner and easier to use. During this time of April 9th to the end of the project, May 8th, we implemented our mirror functionality, UI changes, and documentation cleanup. The biggest risk we faced was that our UI would not be completed by the deadline. However, we were able to do so. This is an overall view of the beacon management system. Our database is a MySQL database that stores SKU information. An API we created can send queries and get query hits back from the database. Our app is able to interact with this API. For example, if we wanted SKU 123, our app would send an HTTP request to our API. Our API would then receive the request and send a query to our database asking for information about SKU 123. If our database has the SKU, it will return the data it found to the API. Our API would then send an HTTP response with the data back to our app. Our app also interacts with another API, the STML Cloud. This API lets us add attachments to a beacon, which hold information. In this case, the attachments hold SKU information. These attachments can be updated or changed. Our mirror also interacts with the STML API. It continuously scans for moving beacons, and when it finds one, it gets the attachment information for the beacon and displays the information, thus allowing customers to get the data they need for a product. Employees would have this app on an MC40, where they would first be able to open the app, select a beacon they would like to configure, then they would be able to select a monitor. Next, a product would be assigned. This can be done by a SKU, or they have the option to edit the existing data on the beacon. They can even change the main photo. After, they can preview the changes and submit. Now when customers lift up a shoe, for example, they can see the information displayed.
The COVID-19 pandemic caused some issues that we had to work around. For the safety of its students and staff, NDSU made the decision to close down its campus. Scheels also made a similar decision to close their offices to non-employees and to have as many employees as possible work from home. These closures made it impossible for us to meet as we had before, and instead moved to a completely online interactions. This was fairly easy to do, as our repositories for the code and documentation were already online, but it did make scheduling meetings more difficult and internet issues became a bit more problematic. Near the end of the project, some of the beacon batteries were getting relatively low. However, we did have enough of them that we were able to continue without much of an interruption. In total, the app was approximately 1,500 lines. We met every requirement that Scheels had given us, and although the UI still needs some polishing after we reworked it, it is a fully functioning app and everything works as intended.
Now that our BMS application is able to edit SKU data and then have that information be displayed on a monitor using a mirror and beacon, the company Scheels is now able to use this year's BMS app project, combine it with last year's Lift and Learn project for next year's capstone project. What this means is that Scheels wants to ultimately combine the two projects in hopes to track what products customers are interested in based on the products that they interact with.
Thank you for watching this presentation, as all of us spent a considerable amount of time working on it throughout the semester, even more so since COVID-19 has made group communication more difficult. If you have any questions for the Beacon Management System project, you can contact Scheels or any of the group members for more information. Thank you.